Parker, darling, you can't possibly expect to stay in the Montgomery estate dressed like that. Sarah Montgomery's perfectly manicured hand gestured dismissively at my simple black dress. The same dress I'd worn to my grandfather's funeral, just hours ago. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I stood in the grand foyer where I'd spent countless childhood summers, now feeling like an unwelcome stranger. The crystal chandelier that once seemed magical now cast harsh shadows across the faces of my so-called family. Mother, please. Thomas, my fiancé of 3 years, stepped forward. Parker's grandfather just passed away. Show some compassion. His words sounded right, but the slight curl of his lip told a different story. I should have known then what was coming. 2 weeks earlier, I was just Parker Reed, a dedicated social worker living in a modest apartment in Boston, making ends meet while trying to help troubled youth. My grandfather Richard was my only real family, though we'd grown distant in recent years. The Montgomerys, old money, social status, and everything that came with it, had swept into my life when Thomas and I met at a charity gala. Now, standing in that foyer, I was about to learn just how quickly family could turn their backs when money was involved. The reading of the will is tomorrow, Sarah continued, swirling her afternoon martini. And frankly, Parker, your presence would be uncomfortable. The family needs time to grieve properly. Family. As if they hadn't spent years trying to edge my grandfather out of his own company. As if they hadn't criticized every decision he made, especially his choice to let me pursue my common career instead of joining Montgomery Industries. I don't understand, I said, though part of me did. I lived here every summer until I was 18. Your grandfather, Harrison Montgomery, Thomas's father, interrupted from his leather armchair, made many questionable decisions in his final years. The company nearly went under twice because of his progressive ideas. Thomas squeezed my hand, but it wasn't comforting anymore. It felt like a warning. Parker, he said softly, leading me toward the grand staircase. Maybe Mother's right. You should pack your things. I'll have Rogers drive you back to your apartment. I looked into his eyes, the same eyes I'd fallen in love with, or thought I had. Thomas, are you asking me to leave? Just until things settle down, he said, but wouldn't meet my gaze. The engagement party is in 2 weeks. We can reassess then. Reassess? Like I was a business proposition gone wrong. Miss Reed, Rogers appeared, as if summoned. Your bags? I didn't cry. Not then. My grandfather had taught me better than that. They're in the East Wing guest room, the blue one. As Rogers disappeared upstairs, Sarah's voice carried across the foyer. It's for the best, dear. You understand, don't you? The Montgomerys have a certain standard to maintain. I watched Thomas retreat to his mother's side, already checking his phone, probably messaging Melissa Wheeler, the appropriate choice his parents had been pushing for since our engagement was announced. The next few minutes passed in a blur. Rogers returned with my small suitcase. Sarah's not-so-subtle comments about new money trying to buy class. Harrison's pointed remarks about the future of Montgomery Industries needing strong, traditional leadership. As I walked down the mansion's grand steps for what I thought would be the last time, Thomas called out. Parker, wait. For a moment, hope flickered. The ring, he said, extending his hand. Mother thinks it's best if we hold on to it. Family heirloom, you understand. I slipped off the 3-carat diamond that had felt heavy since the day he'd placed it on my finger. Of course, family heirloom. I placed it in his palm, our fingers brushing one last time. Wouldn't want it falling into the wrong hands. The car ride back to Boston was silent. Rogers, who'd known me since I was a child running through these same streets, kept glancing in the rearview mirror, but said nothing. What could he say? As we pulled up to my apartment building, the one Thomas had always called quaint with that subtle tone of superiority, Rogers finally spoke. "Miss Reed, your grandfather was a good man." "Thank you, Rogers." I gathered my bag, then paused. "Will you be reading tomorrow?" "No, miss. Staff aren't permitted." He hesitated. "But if I were you, I wouldn't miss it." I nodded, stepping out into the cool evening air. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. "I'll call tomorrow. We can talk about the engagement party then." I deleted it without responding. Up in my apartment, I kicked off my heels and sank into my worn but comfortable couch. On my coffee table sat the last letter my grandfather had sent me, arrived just days before his death. I hadn't opened it yet. Too busy with work, with Thomas's family demands, with everything else that now seemed so meaningless. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. "My dearest Parker, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. Don't waste tears on me. I've lived a good life, though perhaps not always a wise one. But there are things you need to know, truths that couldn't be spoken while I lived. The Montgomerys think they know everything about our family, about Montgomery Industries, about the fortune they've been circling like vultures. They don't. Tomorrow, at 2 p.m., Mr. Whitman will read my will. Be there, Parker. Be there and remember everything I taught you about patience, about dignity, and most importantly, about justice. You are so much more than they know, than anyone knows. All my love, Grandfather." I folded the letter carefully, placing it back in its envelope. Outside my window, Boston's skyline glittered, the Montgomery Industries building standing tall among the rest. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., Little. Did they know being kicked out of the estate was just the beginning of my story? Looking back now, I can smile at their arrogance. Because while they were busy pushing me out of their perfectly curated world, they didn't realize one crucial thing. I wasn't just Parker Reed, the social worker they looked down on. I was Parker Reed Montgomery, sole heir to not just the estate, but to everything my grandfather had built. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., they would learn exactly what that meant. But that wasn't all Grandfather's letter contained. Below his signature, in his distinctive, precise handwriting, was a series of numbers. Coordinates, maybe? A code? The Montgomerys always mocked his love of puzzles, calling it another sign of his deteriorating judgment. What they didn't know was that every summer he spent teaching me these codes. While they were busy with their social galas and charity events, Grandfather and I would sit in his study, solving riddles and creating our own secret languages. "The world runs on secrets, Parker," he'd say, "but it's built by those who know how to unlock them." My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Claire Wheeler, Melissa's sister and Thomas's self-appointed social media manager. "So sorry about the engagement, but honestly, what did you expect?" Attached was a photo from some yacht party last summer, Thomas and Melissa looking cozy by the railing. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 days after he'd proposed to me. I should have felt hurt. Instead, I felt oddly calm. The same calm I'd seen in my grandfather's eyes whenever the board tried to challenge his decisions. They'd called it stubbornness. Now I recognized it for what it was: certainty. A knock at my door startled me. At this hour? I checked the peephole to find an elegantly dressed woman in her 60s, her silver hair immaculately styled. "Ms. Reed?" "I'm Victoria Blackwood, your grandfather's personal attorney." She held up her credentials. "May I come in? We have much to discuss before tomorrow." A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I opened the door, noting how her sharp eyes took in every detail of my modest apartment without judgment. Unlike the Montgomerys, who couldn't look at anything worth less than 6 figures without wincing. Your grandfather insisted I deliver this to you personally, tonight. She handed me a thick manila envelope. He was very specific about the timing. Inside was a key card and a USB drive, along with a handwritten note. The truth about Montgomery Industries, and why they really want me out. Office 1502, tonight only. RM. Victoria watched me examine the contents. Your grandfather knew this day would come. The Montgomerys' true colors always show when they think they've won. They kicked me out of my own grandfather's house, I said, the reality finally sinking in. On the day of his funeral. And that's exactly what he expected them to do. Victoria's smile held a hint of satisfaction. Richard Montgomery didn't build an empire by being naive. Everything that's happened today, he planned for it, prepared for it. I will read tomorrow. It's just the beginning. She stood, smoothing her impeccable suit. That office will be empty for exactly 2 hours tonight. Security cameras will be down for maintenance. Whatever you find there? Well, let's just say the Montgomerys aren't the only ones who know how to play the long game. After she left, I sat staring at the key card. Office 1502, my grandfather's. Private office at Montgomery Industries. The one even Harrison Montgomery wasn't allowed to enter. My phone buzzed one final time. A group text from Sarah Montgomery to the entire family. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., we begin a new chapter for Montgomery Industries. Proper leadership at last. I slipped the keycard into my pocket and grabbed my coat. The Montgomery Industries building was a 20-minute walk away. Just enough time to remember every snide comment, every condescending look, every well-meaning suggestion about how I should dress, act, or live. They thought they were writing me out of their story. They didn't realize I was about to become the author of their downfall. The Montgomery Industries building cast a long shadow over Boston's financial district. At night, its glass facade reflected the city lights like a tower of stars. I'd always admired it from afar. Now I was about to discover its secrets. The night security guard barely glanced at my keycard, too engrossed in his newspaper. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt endless, each floor's soft ding marking. Time like a countdown, Office 1502. The nameplate still read Richard Montgomery, founder. Inside, everything remained exactly as I remembered from my last visit 6 months ago. The leather-bound books, the antique globe, the wall of photographs chronicling Montgomery Industries' rise from a small tech startup to a corporate giant. But tonight, I wasn't here for memories. My grandfather's computer hummed to life when I inserted the USB drive. A single video file appeared on the screen, dated just 3 weeks ago. Parker. My grandfather's face filled the screen, looking tired but determined. If you're watching this, then everything has played out as I predicted. The Montgomerys have shown their true nature. He shifted in his chair, the same chair I now sat in. What I'm about to tell you will change everything. Harrison Montgomery isn't just after my company. He's been embezzling from it for years, funneling money through shell corporations. The evidence is all here. He held up a thick file. But that's not even the worst of it. A series of documents flashed across the screen. Financial reports, emails, offshore account statements. They've been selling our military contract technology to foreign competitors. Harrison, Thomas, all of them. They're not just greedy, they're traitors. My hands trembled as I downloaded the files. Thomas? Had he known? Had our entire relationship been part of their scheme? But I've prepared for this, Grandfather continued. Montgomery Industries isn't just a company, Parker. It's a legacy. Your legacy. Everything I've built. It was always meant for you. The screen went dark, then lit up with a new document. My eyes widened as I read, Project Phoenix, Co-Contingency Transfer Protocol. Harrison thinks he knows all my assets, Grandfather's voice continued off-screen. He doesn't. The real Montgomery Industries, the patents, the contracts, the core technology. It's all been transferred to a separate entity. Phoenix Enterprises, registered in your name 6 months ago. I remembered that day. Grandfather had asked me to sign some papers, calling it estate planning. I'd trusted him, signed without reading. Just like I'd trusted Thomas. The Montgomerys are about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating the wrong person. His voice grew stronger. You're not just my granddaughter, Parker. You're my heir in every way that matters. Will I be reading tomorrow? That's just theater. The real power transfer happened months ago. A soft knock at the door made me jump. But it was only Victoria Blackwood, right on schedule. Found what you needed? She asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. Phoenix Enterprises, I said. I own it all. Indeed. She placed a leather portfolio on the desk. And as CEO of Phoenix Enterprises, you might be interested in these. Inside were documents showing every illegal transaction the Montgomerys had made, every betrayal, every scheme. They'll try to fight this, I warned. Let them. Victoria's smile turned predatory. That's exactly what your grandfather hoped they'd do. You see, the moment they challenge Phoenix's ownership, all of this evidence goes public. They're trapped, and they don't even know it yet. My phone buzzed. Thomas again. Parker, about tomorrow. Mother suggests you skip the reading. Avoid any unpleasantness. I looked at Victoria. They have no idea, do they? Not a clue. They're so convinced of their own superiority, they never bothered to look deeper. She gathered her things. The car will arrive at 1:30 tomorrow. Wear something memorable. After she left, I stood at the office window, watching the city below. Somewhere, out there, the Montgomerys were probably celebrating their imminent victory. Tomorrow, they'd learn what real power looked like. Morning arrived with a flurry of texts from Thomas's family, each one more condescending than the last. Sarah. Darling, be reasonable. It will be a family matter. Harrison. Know your place? Girl, don't make this difficult. Claire Wheeler. Another party pic surfaced. Should I post it now or wait? I dressed carefully, not in the simple black dress they'd mocked, but in a tailored white suit I'd never worn. Grandfather had sent it. Months ago. For when the time comes, the note had read. Now I understand. The Montgomery estate looked different in daylight. Less intimidating, more temporary, like a stage set about to be struck. Parker. Thomas rushed down the steps. I told you not to come. This is embarrassing for everyone. Izzy. It? I kept walking, Victoria falling into step beside me. Who's this? Thomas demanded. You can't bring outsiders to a private family matter. Victoria Blackwood, CEO of Phoenix Enterprises. She introduced herself, watching his face. I believe you've been trying to reach our acquisitions department? Thomas paled. Phoenix Enterprises, the mysterious company that had been blocking Montgomery Industries deals for months. The one his father couldn't identify. Inside, the family had assembled in the grand library. Sarah nearly dropped her morning cocktail when she saw me. What is she doing here? Thomas, handle this! Mrs. Montgomery, Victoria spoke before Thomas. Could. As Miss Reed's legal counsel, I advise against any attempts to exclude her from these proceedings. Legal counsel? Harrison thundered. This is preposterous. Security. That won't be necessary. Mr. Whitman, the estate lawyer, entered, with his assistants. Miss Reed is, in fact, essential to these proceedings. The next few minutes were a blur of legal terms as Mr. Whitman began the formal reading. I barely heard him. Instead, I watched the Montgomerys' faces, memorizing their expressions of smug certainty. And finally, Mr. Whitman adjusted his glasses. To my granddaughter Parker Reed, I leave this letter, to be read aloud now. Harrison started to protest, but Mr. Whitman had already begun reading. My dearest family, You're all here because you think you know what's coming. Harrison, you've spent years plotting to take my company. Sarah, you've got the estate redecorators on speed dial. And Thomas, you never did understand that some things can't be bought. But today you learn what real legacy means. Parker isn't just my granddaughter. She's been CEO of Phoenix Enterprises for 6 months. Everything you thought you were going to inherit? She already owns it. The companies you've been trying to acquire? She controls them. The future you thought you could steal? It was never yours to take. To those who showed kindness, the staff, the loyal employees, Parker will take care of you. To the rest, consider this your severance notice. Game over. Sincerely, Richard Montgomery. The chaos that erupted was almost beautiful. Sarah fainted dramatically onto a priceless ottoman. Harrison's face turned purple as he lunged for the papers in Mr. Whitman's hands. And Thomas? Thomas just stood there, finally seeing me for the first time. Parker, he whispered. We can fix this. We're engaged, remember? What's mine is yours. No, Thomas. I removed a small velvet box from my suit pocket. His grandmother's ring, the one they'd forced me to return. What's mine was never yours to take. Victoria stepped forward, tablet in hand. Now, about those illegal technology sales to foreign entities. Harrison's attorney, James Preston, stepped forward with a sneer. This is absurd. You can't possibly expect us to believe that Richard would hand over a multi-billion-dollar corporation to a social worker. Actually, Victoria produced another document. Miss Reed has an MBA from Harvard Business School, completed through their evening program while working full-time. Another detail you overlooked while judging her choice of career. The revelation hit Thomas like a physical blow. All those evenings I'd said I was working late at the youth center. I'd been in class, preparing for exactly this moment. The engagement ring had arrived the same week I graduated. Now I wondered if that timing had been intentional on his part. The board will never accept this, Harrison sputtered. We'll challenge it in court. By all means, I gestured to Victoria, who began, distributing tablets to each board member present. While you're at it, explain these offshore accounts to them. I'm sure they'd love to hear about the Miller defense contract diversion. The board members' faces changed as they scrolled through the evidence. Jeffrey Miller, head of the defense contractor division, looked ready to faint. Harrison, what have you done? It's a trick, Sarah jumped in, her social grace cracking. Parker's trying to destroy this family out of spite. Thomas, tell them. But Thomas was staring at his own tablet, at emails between him and Melissa Wheeler, discussing their investment strategy, selling company secrets while playing the devoted fiancé. The Pentagon would be very interested in these documents, Victoria noted casually. Unless, of course, we can reach an agreement about a peaceful transition of power. You planned this, Thomas finally spoke, looking at me with new eyes. All of it. The modest apartment, the social work job. No, Thomas. I chose that life because it mattered to me. Because, unlike you, I understand that wealth isn't just about stock portfolios and summer homes. I turned to address the board. Montgomery Industries was founded on innovation and integrity. My grandfather built this company to make a difference, not to line offshore accounts. Rogers appeared at the door. Dear, loyal Rogers who'd watched me grow up. Miss Reed, the press is assembled in the main hall, as requested. Harrison lunged. Ford, you can't do this, you'll what? I cut him off. Reveal that you've been stealing from your own company? That you sold military secrets for profit? Or perhaps you'd like to explain to the shareholders why Montgomery Industries' stock will plummet the moment these documents go public. The fight drained from him as the reality of his situation sank in. Decades of carefully constructed power, gone in an instant. The choice is simple, Victoria stated. Resign quietly, all of you. Sign the transfer agreements. In return, we don't press charges. You keep your personal assets. Though I'd check those offshore accounts soon, they seemed to be experiencing some technical difficulties. Sarah collapsed into a chair, her perfect composure shattered. Everything we built— You built nothing, I corrected her. You just took credit for other people's work. That ends today. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal documents. One by one, the Montgomerys surrendered their positions, their access, their illusions of control. As the last paper was signed, I turned to the family that had tried so hard to erase me. You have 24 hours to vacate the estate. Don't worry about packing everything. I'm sure you can buy new things with all that offshore money, while it lasts. You can't just throw us out, Sarah protested weakly. Actually, she can. Victoria smiled. The estate belongs to Phoenix Enterprises now. All of it. I walked to the library window. The same window where my grandfather used to tell me stories about building his company from nothing. Oh, and Thomas? Melissa Wheeler? Called earlier. Apparently, she's reconsidering your relationship now that your net worth has adjusted. The press conference that followed was brief, but devastating. Not for Montgomery Industries. The company's stock actually rose on the announcement of new leadership and transparency measures. But for the family that had thought themselves untouchable, it was an earthquake. That evening, I sat in my grandfather's study, my study now, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Victoria entered with a stack of papers. The transition teams are in place, she reported, and you'll be pleased to know that Project Phoenix's other initiatives are ready to launch. The educational fund, the technology incubator, all set. Your grandfather would be proud. He always said you'd be the one to take his vision further than he ever could. I picked up a framed photo from the desk, my grandfather and me at my college graduation, both of us beaming. The Montgomerys hadn't attended, claiming it was beneath their social obligations. They never saw me coming, I mused. That was their biggest mistake, Victoria agreed. They were so busy looking down on you they never bothered to look up and see the storm gathering above their heads. The Montgomery Industries lobby buzzed with nervous energy as I strode through the revolving doors. Employees who'd never given me a second glance now scrambled to attention, their whispered conversations falling silent. Good morning, Miss Reed. Marcus Chen, head of security, stepped forward. We've implemented the new access protocols you requested. Thank you, Marcus. I remembered how he'd once caught me exploring the building as a child, but instead of reporting me, he'd given me a private tour of the security center. I trust the transition team found everything in order? His expression darkened. Not exactly. We discovered several servers had been wiped clean last night. Mr. Montgomery's personal assistant initiated emergency data deletion protocols. Of course they had. Send everything to our forensics team. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt different now. No more side eyes from staff wondering why the boss's granddaughter was wearing off-the-rack clothes. No more whispered comments about my unfortunate career choices. My grandfather's, my office had been transformed overnight. Gone were the heavy drapes and dark wood panels Harrison had insisted on. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating modern furnishings and state-of-the-art displays. Your 9 a.m. is here, announced Diane Foster, my newly appointed executive assistant. She'd worked for my grandfather for 20 years before Harrison demoted her to the mailroom. The division heads are waiting in the conference room. I squared, my shoulders smoothing my blazer. Time to face the old guard. The conference room fell silent as I entered. 12 division heads, all men over 50, all handpicked by Harrison. They had expected to be meeting with him today about the company's new direction. Gentlemen, I took my place at the head of the table. Let's discuss the future of Montgomery Industries. Charles Wagner, head of acquisitions, cleared his throat. Miss Reed, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, perhaps we should wait for the board's final decision on leadership structure. The board's decision was finalized at 8 a.m., Victoria announced, entering with a stack of documents. Miss Reed's appointment as CEO is unanimous. Impossible, Wagner sputtered. The vote wasn't scheduled until next week. Emergency session, Victoria smiled. Called after certain irregularities came to light. Speaking of which, she distributed tablets around the table. You might want to review these findings. The color drained from Wagner's face as he read. 3 other division heads suddenly found their shoes fascinating. Gentlemen, I leaned forward. Let me be clear. The old way of doing business at Montgomery Industries is over. No more kickbacks. No more sweetheart deals. No more covering up safety violations to save a few dollars. You'll destroy everything we've built, protested Edgar Mills, head of operations. No, Mr. Mills. I'm going to rebuild what you've destroyed. Starting with the Carter Valley project. The room erupted in protests. The Carter Valley development, Harrison's pet project, had displaced hundreds of families to build luxury condos. My grandfather had opposed it until the end. The contracts are signed, Mills argued. Construction begins next week. Actually, I pulled up the project files on the main screen. Those contracts were never properly executed. The environmental impact study was falsified, and the zoning permits— I let the silence hang. You can't prove that. Wagner's voice shook slightly. Can I? Another document appeared on screen. Emails between Wagner and city officials discussing bribes. The DA's office is very interested in these communications. The mood in the room shifted from dismissive to desperate. These men had built careers on backroom deals and mutual backscratching. They'd never imagined their methods would see daylight. Now, I continued, we have 2 options. You can resist these changes, in which case the evidence of your various indiscretions goes public. Or, Mills whispered, or you can help me transform Montgomery Industries into what it should have been all along. A company that leads through innovation, not intimidation. Victoria distributed new folders. Your new contracts, revised compensation packages, ethics guidelines, and performance metrics. You have 1 hour to decide. As they filed out, shell-shocked, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won? Ask your grandfather about Project Eclipse. While you still can. Before I could respond, Diane rushed in. Miss Reed, there's a situation in the lobby. Mr. Montgomery is demanding entry. He's not alone. Security cameras showed Harrison, surrounded by a team of lawyers and private security. The prodigal son returns, I murmured. Shall I have security remove them? Marcus asked through the intercom. No. A plan formed in my mind. Send them up, but first, contact Judge Martinez. Tell her it's time to execute warrant package B. Victoria raised an eyebrow. You anticipated this? Harrison Montgomery never accepts defeat gracefully. He'll try to claim grandfather was mentally incompetent when he transferred control to Phoenix Enterprises. I stood, straightening my jacket. Let's give him the audience he wants. Minutes later, Harrison burst through my office doors, his face mottled with rage. You little upstart! You think you can steal my company? Your company? I remained seated, projecting calm. Interesting choice of words considering the actual ownership documents. His lawyer, Preston, stepped forward. We're prepared to file an emergency injunction. Mr. Montgomery has evidence that Richard Reed was not of sound mind when he discovered you were selling military secrets, I interrupted. Or when he uncovered your client's embezzlement scheme? Harrison's private security moved forward, but Marcus's team was faster, materializing from hidden alcoves. Careful, Victoria warned. Assaulting a federal witness is a serious crime. Federal witness? Harrison's face went from red to white. What are you talking about? Right on cue, the elevator doors opened. FBI agents filed out, led by a stern-faced woman in a dark suit. Harrison Montgomery? She held up her badge. Special, Agent Laura Chen, we have some questions about Project Eclipse. The fight drained from Harrison's face. Project Eclipse, the coded name for his deepest secret, the one even Thomas didn't know about. You're bluffing, he tried to rally. You can't possibly know about the weapons tech you sold to foreign governments? I pulled up another file. Or the shell companies you used to hide the profits? Grandfather knew everything, Harrison. He just waited for the right moment to act. Special Agent Chen stepped forward. Mr. Montgomery, you and your associates are under investigation for espionage, fraud, and conspiracy. I suggest you come with us quietly. As the agents led Harrison away, his lawyer trailing behind like a lost puppy, I turned to the window. Below, news vans were already assembling. By nightfall, the Montgomery name would mean something very different. Miss Reed? Diane appeared. The Carter Valley community representatives are here for their meeting. I smiled. Time to start rebuilding more than just a company. One more thing, Victoria added. Thomas is in the lobby. He's demanding to see you. Is he alone? No. Melissa. Wheeler's with him. They're quite insistent. Perfect. Send them up in 10 minutes. And Victoria, make sure the cameras are running. I want to preserve this moment. Parker. Thomas burst into the office, Melissa Wheeler clinging to his arm like a designer accessory. You have to stop this madness. You're destroying everything. I didn't look up from my computer screen. Destroying what exactly? The illegal contracts? The offshore accounts? Or just your perfect little world of privilege? The board vote was illegal, Melissa chimed in, her socialite polish cracking. Daddy's lawyers are already preparing. Your father resigned from the board an hour ago, Victoria interrupted, entering with a tablet. Something about not wanting to be involved in a federal investigation. That knocked the wind from their sails. Maxwell Wheeler, Melissa's father, had built his reputation on playing both sides of every corporate conflict. If he was jumping ship, the Wheeler family has always supported Montgomery Industries. Melissa tried again, her voice taking on a desperate edge. You mean they've always supported whoever could advance their interests? I finally looked up. Tell me, does your father know about insider trading? The tips you've been selling to his competitors? Her perfectly bronzed complexion went ashen. You're lying. I never— Check your phone, Victoria suggested mildly. Your broker seems to be having a very interesting conversation with the SEC. Right now. Thomas stepped forward, adjusting his Italian silk tie, a nervous habit I'd once found endearing. Parker, be reasonable. Whatever my father did, whatever mistakes were made, we can work this out. We're still family. Family? I stood slowly. Like when your mother had security escort me out during my grandfather's funeral? Or when you demanded your ring back because I wasn't appropriate anymore? That was different. I was under pressure. No, Thomas, you were exactly who you've always been. I just refused to see it. I pressed a button on my desk. Speaking of seeing things clearly, the office's glass walls turned opaque, then transformed into display screens. Security footage began playing. Dozens of clips showing Thomas and Melissa at various hotels, restaurants, private clubs. All dated during our engagement. I especially like this one, I noted as a particular clip played. The day after you proposed. You told me you were at a business meeting in Chicago. Did you have me? His outrage would have been more convincing if his voice hadn't cracked. No, grandfather did. He knew what you were from the beginning. The question is, did Melissa know about your other girlfriends? Melissa's head snapped around so fast I heard her neck crack. Other girlfriends? More footage played. Thomas with various women, all following the same pattern. Expensive restaurants, hotel meetings, strategic business discussions. You were busy these past few years, I commented. Tell me, how many corporate secrets did you collect? How many confidential files changed hands over champagne and caviar? That's not— I never— Thomas stammered. Save it. I nodded to Victoria, who distributed more documents. The FBI is particularly interested in your meetings with foreign investors. Seems they weren't just buying your charm. Melissa backed away from Thomas like he'd suddenly developed leprosy. You told me I was special, that we were building something together. Oh, he was building something. Victoria smiled. A network of corporate espionage that would have made his father proud, if he hadn't been so sloppy about it. The door opened again, admitting Special Agent Chen. Mr. Montgomery, Ms. Wheeler, perfect timing. We have some questions about certain technology transfers. You can't do this, Thomas tried one last time. The prenuptial agreement was never filed, I finished. Another detail you overlooked. Too busy juggling girlfriends to check if your lawyer actually submitted the paperwork. As the FBI agents led them out, I turned to the window. The sun was setting over Boston Harbor, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Below, news vans continued to gather, drawn by the scent of scandal. Miss Reed. Diane entered with a fresh stack of reports. The forensics team found something interesting in the wiped servers. It seems Harrison wasn't just selling military tech. Oh? Project Eclipse wasn't a weapons program. It was medical research. Experimental treatments they were testing without approval. There were deaths. My blood ran cold. This was worse than we'd imagined. Get me everything they found, and contact the families of anyone involved. They deserve to know the truth. There's more, Victoria added. Sarah Montgomery is giving interviews, claiming you orchestrated this whole thing, that you seduced Thomas as part of a plan to steal the company. I almost laughed. And people are believing her? Some are. The old guard doesn't want to accept that their perfect world is crumbling. They're calling for a shareholder meeting, trying to rally support. Let them try. I picked up my grandfather's old pocket watch, the one he'd carried through every business battle. Schedule the meeting for tomorrow. It's time to show them exactly what kind of leader Montgomery Industries has now. My phone buzzed. A message. From an encrypted number. You've made powerful enemies. Not everyone involved in Project Eclipse has been exposed. Watch your back. Victoria, I turned to my trusted advisor. How much do you know about my grandfather's last research project? The one he started right before he died? Project Phoenix wasn't just about corporate restructuring, was it? No. I pulled up a hidden file on my computer. It was about justice, and it's not finished yet. The screen filled with names, dates, connections, a web of corruption that stretched far beyond the Montgomerys. Politicians, judges, business leaders, all tied to Project Eclipse. Your grandfather left you more than just a company, Victoria realized. He left you a mission. He left me the truth, I corrected, and the power to do something about it. A notification popped up, breaking news about Harrison's arrest. The reporters were already spinning theories, but none of them knew the real story. Not yet. Miss Reed? Marcus appeared at the door. We've detected unauthorized access attempts on our secure servers. Someone's trying to hack the system. Let them try. I smiled, remembering all those summers spent learning coding from my grandfather. They have no idea what they're up against. The sun had fully set now, leaving the city sparkling below like a field of stars. Somewhere out there, Sarah Montgomery was probably plotting her next move. Thomas and Melissa were probably bargaining with federal agents. And Harrison was learning that prison cells don't come with ocean views. But I had work to do. Real work, the kind my grandfather had always believed in. It was time to show the world what Montgomery Industries could really be. Victoria, call the board. Tomorrow's meeting just got more interesting. The next hour brought a flurry of developments. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, head of Montgomery Industries' Medical Research Division, requested an urgent meeting. I can't keep quiet anymore, she burst out as soon as my office door closed. Project Eclipse. It wasn't Just unauthorized trials. They were targeting specific communities, vulnerable populations, people who wouldn't be missed. My chest tightened. How many? Dozens, maybe hundreds. She pulled out a worn notebook. I kept records, private ones. Harrison threatened my family when I tried to stop it, but I documented everything. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Dr. Reeves, my grandfather had mentioned her in his files. A brilliant researcher who'd suddenly been demoted to lab supervision. The treatments they were testing, Victoria leaned forward. What exactly were they meant to do? Life extension, cellular regeneration, playing God. Dr. Reeves's hand shook. They didn't care about the side effects, the suffering. Harrison said the potential profits were worth any casualties. Why come forward now? Because your grandfather trusted you. And because, she hesitated, someone else is continuing the trials. Somewhere off the books. People are still dying. Before I could respond, Marcus's voice crackled over the intercom. Miss Reed, we've got protesters gathering outside. Sarah Montgomery is leading them. The security feeds showed Sarah, perfectly coiffed despite her ordeal, surrounded by reporters. Montgomery Industries has been stolen by an ungrateful girl who never understood our family's values. My son's heart has been broken. Our reputation smeared? She's good, Victoria admitted. Playing the wounded matriarch card. Send in the PR team, I instructed Diane. And get me everything we have on Sarah's private accounts. She's not as clean as she pretends. Already done, Diane smiled. You might be interested in her connection to the Meadowbrook Clinic. Dr. Reeves gasped. Meadowbrook? That's where did they test the treatments? I finished. On unsuspecting patients? The doctor nodded, face pale. My phone buzzed again, another encrypted message. The clinic records aren't all destroyed. Proof exists, but others are searching too. A plan began forming. Victoria, how quickly can we get a court order to seize Meadowbrook's files? Judge Martinez is still on standby. Give me 10 minutes. Make it 5. And get me Daniel Hayes from the Boston Globe. It's time this story had a wider audience. As Victoria left, I turned to Dr. Reeves. Are you willing to go on record? To testify if needed? They'll destroy me. No, I promised. They won't, because this time, you're not standing alone. My computer chimed. An email from Maxwell Wheeler's secretary. Subject line. What Sarah Montgomery really knew about Meadowbrook. The pieces were falling into place faster now. Sarah hadn't just been Harrison's willing accomplice. She'd been an active participant. Society parties, charity functions, all covers for something much darker. Miss Reed? Marcus again. Mrs. Montgomery is demanding to speak with you. Says she has information you can't ignore. Let her up. I turned to Dr. Reeves. Would you like to face one of the people responsible for those deaths? Sarah swept in like she still owned the place, designer handbag swinging. Parker, darling, this vendetta has gone far enough. You've made your point. Have I? I gestured to Dr. Reeves. Maybe you two should catch up. Talk about old times? Meadowbrook, perhaps? The color drained from Sarah's perfect complexion. I don't know what your 47 deaths, Dr. Reeves cut in, voice steady. Now. That's how many I personally documented. How many did you know about Sarah? How many families did you help destroy? These accusations are ridiculous. I was simply on the hospital board, a charitable position. We have the transfer records, I interrupted. Every payment, every cover-up, even the offshore account where you stashed your percentage. Sarah's composure cracked. You don't understand. The research, it could have changed everything. Made us immortal. A few sacrifices. Sacrifices? Dr. Reeves stood, trembling with rage. They were people, human beings, not lab rats for your vanity projects. The board meeting tomorrow, I continued calmly. You're planning some kind of power play, trying to rally the old guard against me. The shareholders will never accept you. You're not one of us. No. I smiled. I'm better. Because unlike you, I remember what this company was meant to be. What it can still become. I pressed a button, and the office screens lit up with documents, photos, evidence. Everything we had on Meadowbrook, on Project Eclipse, on Sarah's involvement. Tomorrow's meeting will be interesting, I agreed. Especially when the shareholders learn where their money really went, how many lives were destroyed in the name of profit. Sarah's perfectly manicured hands clenched her bag. You'll regret this. You have no idea who you're really fighting. Actually, I do. And so did my grandfather. Why do you think he spent years gathering evidence, building the case? He knew what you were, all of you. He was just waiting for the right moment and the right person to bring it all down. As security arrived to escort Sarah out, I turned to Dr. Reeves. Ready to help me finish what my grandfather started? She straightened her lab coat. Where do we begin? With the truth, all of it. The city lights twinkled below, a reminder of all the lives touched by Montgomery Industries, for better or worse. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new revelations, new chances to right old wrongs. But tonight we had work to do. Dawn broke over Boston as I reviewed the final preparations for the shareholder meeting. The Montgomery Industries boardroom had been transformed overnight. New security systems, biometric scanners, and most importantly, a full digital archive of every document we'd uncovered. The shareholders are beginning to arrive, Diane announced. And there's something else. A woman claiming to be Catherine Montgomery is in the lobby. I froze. Catherine Montgomery, Thomas's sister, who'd vanished from public life 5 years ago after a very public breakdown. The family claimed she was recovering at a private facility in Switzerland. She says she has information about Project Eclipse. Says she was one of their first test subjects. The pieces clicked into place. Not Switzerland, Meadowbrook. Her own family had used her as a guinea pig. Bring her up. Quietly. Catherine Montgomery bore little resemblance to the socialite in old photos. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup, replaced by simple jeans and a haunted expression. You look like him, she said softly. Your grandfather, he tried. To help me, you know. Before they sent you to Meadowbrook? She nodded, hands trembling slightly. They said it was for anxiety, depression. But the treatments, they were experimenting on us, changing us. Some patients didn't survive the procedures. Victoria entered with a tablet. Miss Montgomery, would you be willing to make a statement? We have federal agents standing by. That's why I came. Catherine straightened, a flash of her old strength showing through. I kept records, proof. The nurses, some of them helped me document everything. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the glass walls, we could see Sarah Montgomery arguing with security. She can't be here. Sarah's voice carried even through soundproof glass. Catherine is unstable, delusional. Actually, Special Agent Chen stepped out of the elevator. She's our star witness. Mrs. Montgomery, I believe we have some matters to discuss before the meeting. As agents led Sarah away, her perfectly maintained facade finally cracked. You ungrateful little brat. After everything we did for you, everything you did? Catherine's voice cut through her mother's hysterics. Like using your own daughter as a test subject? The boardroom fell silent. Shareholders who'd been milling about froze, phones raised to capture the drama. Security footage from Meadowbrook, Victoria murmured, sliding a tablet toward me. Including Sarah's weekly visits to oversee the treatments personally. My stomach turned as I watched. No wonder Catherine had disappeared. They'd nearly killed her in their quest for the perfect anti-aging treatment. Miss Reed? Marcus's voice crackled over the intercom. Maxwell Wheeler is requesting entrance. Says he has information about Project Eclipse's overseas operations. The dominoes were falling faster now. Wheeler, facing federal investigation, was ready to turn on his former allies. The meeting starts in 30 minutes, Victoria reminded me. How do you want to play this? I studied the gathering crowd of shareholders, board members, and press. They'd come expecting corporate theater. Instead, they were about to witness the unveiling of a decades-long criminal conspiracy. Let them all in, I decided. It's time everyone learned the truth about the Montgomery legacy. Catherine touched my arm. There's something else you should know. About Thomas. He wasn't just gathering corporate secrets. He was recruiting test subjects. Young women who trusted him, who thought they were getting experimental beauty treatments. My blood ran cold. The string of girlfriends, the hotel meetings. It hadn't just been about corporate espionage. Miss Reed? Diane appeared with a fresh stack of documents. The forensics team found something in Harrison's private server. Videos. Of the treatments. He recorded everything. Get it to the FBI. I couldn't bear to watch more victims suffer. And contact our legal team. I want a victims' compensation fund established immediately. The boardroom began filling with shareholders, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Many had been loyal to Harrison for decades, benefiting from his corrupt practices. Maxwell Wheeler entered last, looking nothing like the polished CEO who'd hosted yacht parties and charity galas. Parker? He nodded stiffly. I have something you need to see. He placed a worn leather journal on the table. Richard's personal notes about Project Eclipse. He gave them to me for safekeeping, made me swear I'd only hand them over if things went wrong. And now? Now I'm choosing the right side. Finally. He glanced at Catherine. I'm sorry. For all of it. The clock struck 9. Time for the meeting to begin. I took my grandfather's place at the head of the table, feeling the weight of his legacy, the real legacy, not the corrupted version the Montgomerys had created. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, you're here because you believe in Montgomery Industries. Some of you have invested millions, built careers, staked reputations on this company's success. Heads nodded around the table. But success built on suffering isn't success at all. It's just another form of failure. The screens around the room lit up, displaying evidence of decades of corruption. Medical records, financial transfers, test results written in blood. Project Eclipse wasn't about advancing medical science. It was about profit at any cost. Human experimentation disguised as cutting-edge research. Lives destroyed in the name of corporate growth. Catherine stepped forward, her presence a living testament to the horror we were unveiling. Today, we're not just changing leadership. We're changing direction. Every cent of illegal profit will be returned. Every victim compensated. Every perpetrator was brought to justice. You'll destroy shareholder value? Someone protested. No, I corrected. I'm saving this company's soul. And if you look at these quarterly projections, new figures appeared. On screen, you'll see that ethical business can be profitable business. Victoria distributed comprehensive reports, details of new research initiatives, sustainable development projects, community reinvestment plans. The choice is simple, I continued. You can sell your shares now, walk away from what we're building, or you can be part of Montgomery Industries' redemption. Your call. The room erupted in questions, demands, arguments. But beneath the chaos, I could see understanding dawning in some faces. The realization that change wasn't just necessary, it was inevitable. My phone buzzed one final time. You're not alone in this fight. Others are watching, ready to help. Signal when you need us. The message was signed with a single letter. P, for Phoenix. As the shareholder meeting progressed, a junior analyst burst into the room clutching a laptop. Miss Reed, you need to see this. We've uncovered a network of shell companies, not just in the Cayman Islands, dozens of jurisdictions. The money trail. It leads to places we never expected. The data scrolling across his screen told a story more sinister than mere corporate greed. Private military contractors, underground research facilities, political slush funds spanning 3 continents. Project Eclipse wasn't just about anti-aging, treatments, Maxwell Wheeler explained, his voice heavy. They were developing something else. Enhancement protocols. Ways to create improved humans. Catherine's hands began to shake. The nightmares I had after the treatments, they weren't just dreams, were they? The strength, the heightened senses. Your father saw it as the next stage of human evolution, Wheeler continued. But the success rate was minimal. Most subjects, most victims, didn't survive the process. A silver-haired board member stood up. This is preposterous. You expect us to believe— Actually, Dr. Reeves interrupted, entering. With a thick medical file, we have proof, tissue samples, genetic markers, evidence of cellular manipulation beyond anything currently known to medical science. The screens displayed laboratory data, chemical formulas, genetic sequences. The board member sank back into his chair, face ashen. Your grandfather discovered the truth 6 months ago, Wheeler revealed. That's when he accelerated Project Phoenix, not just as a corporate restructuring, but as a complete dismantling of Harrison's underground empire. Victoria's tablet chimed. Speaking of Harrison, he's asking to make a deal. Says he has names. People higher up the chain. Higher up? A chill ran down my spine. Who could be— The lights went out. Emergency generators kicked in immediately. But something was wrong. The digital displays flickered with strange symbols. Then went dark. We're being hacked, Marcus announced through the intercom. Someone's trying to access the secure servers. Let them, I smiled, remembering the trap. My grandfather had prepared for exactly this moment. Activate Protocol Omega. The screens burst back to life, but now they showed something different. A reverse trace, revealing the attacker's own systems. Names, locations, bank accounts, everything they thought was hidden. My God, Wheeler whispered. Senators, military, officials, corporate leaders across 3 continents. The real power behind Project Eclipse? Victoria nodded. They thought they could silence us by killing our data. Instead, they just exposed themselves, I finished. Marcus, send everything to the FBI. All of it. Catherine approached the window, staring at the city below. They'll come after you now. The same way they came after me when I first discovered the truth. Let them try. I joined her at the window. Your father's empire wasn't built on business acumen. It was built on blackmail, threats, the power to expose inconvenient truths about powerful people. And now you control that power, Wheeler realized. No. I turned to face the room. Now we use that power to expose all of it. Every crime, every cover-up, every life is destroyed in the name of profit and progress. The shareholders shifted uncomfortably. They'd come expecting a standard corporate power struggle. Instead, they were witnessing the unveiling of a global conspiracy. Miss Reed, Diane entered with a secure phone. The Attorney General is on line 1, and there's a situation in the lobby. Protesters. Hundreds of them. The security feed showed crowds gathering outside, but these weren't Sarah's hired agitators. These were Meadowbrook survivors, families of victims, people demanding justice. Let them in, I decided. All of them. It's time they saw their tormentors face to face. As security began coordinating the controlled entry of protesters, my private phone buzzed. A message from the mysterious P. Phase 1 complete. Ready to begin Phase 2. The world is watching. I looked at Catherine, seeing the strength returning to her stance. At Dr. Reeves, clutching decades of hidden evidence. At Wheeler, choosing redemption over profit. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the shell-shocked shareholders. You have a choice to make. Not just about stocks and profits, but about justice, about legacy, about what kind of world we want to build. The doors opened, admitting the first wave of protesters. Their faces told stories no quarterly report could capture, stories of loss, pain, and now perhaps hope. Montgomery Industries was founded to make a difference, I continued. Today we honor that mission, not by hiding the truth, but by bringing it into the light. The room erupted in chaos, questions, accusations, revelations. But beneath it all, I could feel the tide turning. The moment when truth becomes unstoppable. Miss Reed? Marcus's voice cracked over the intercom. There's something else. We found his contingency files, your grandfather's personal logs. He knew this day would come. He was preparing for it all along. The final piece clicked into place. Every lesson he'd taught me. Every summer I spent learning codes and ciphers. Every seemingly random piece of knowledge. He'd been training me not just to run a company, but to dismantle an empire of corruption. The world was about to change, and we were just getting started. The aftermath of the shareholder meeting sent shockwaves through Boston's financial district. News helicopters circled the Montgomery Industries building while social media exploded with leaked documents and testimonies. The press is demanding statements, Diane reported, juggling multiple phones. CNN, Fox Business, Bloomberg, they're all running special reports. But I was focused on something else, a hidden safe in my grandfather's office, revealed by the building's original blueprints. Inside lay a single leather journal, its pages filled with his meticulous handwriting. The truth about Catherine wasn't the end, I read aloud. Project Eclipse had another phase, Operation Ascendant, Victoria. And Dr. Reeves exchanged alarmed looks. Ascendant? That was classified beyond top secret. I only heard rumors. Dr. Reeves trailed off. Because it wasn't just about enhancement, Maxwell Wheeler stepped forward. It was about control. The treatments. They made subjects susceptible to suggestion. Programmable. Catherine rapped, her arms around herself. The nightmares, the lost time, the strange commands I felt compelled to follow. They were creating sleeper agents, Wheeler confirmed. Perfectly placed in corporations, governments, military installations. My blood ran cold as I continued reading. Harrison didn't just run the program, he was its first success story, the perfect corporate warrior, engineered to pursue profit at any cost. His own humanity was deliberately suppressed. That's why he never showed remorse, Catherine whispered. Why could he treat his own daughter like a lab rat? They'd literally stripped away his capacity for empathy. The journal's final pages revealed an even darker truth. The enhancement process was irreversible, but temporary. Subjects required regular treatments to maintain their altered state. Without them, total neural collapse, Dr. Reeves finished. That's why they kept such careful records of dosing schedules. Miss everything they built would crumble. A notification popped up on my secure terminal, facial recognition hits from airports nationwide. They're running, Victoria observed. Board members, research staff, everyone connected to Ascendant is trying to flee the country. Let them run. I activated a sequence of commands. Every private airfield, every port, every border crossing. They'll find federal agents waiting. The office door burst open as Marcus rushed in. Miss Reed, Harrison, he's escaped custody. Security footage showed the chaos. Federal agents down. Harrison Montgomery moving with impossible speed and strength. His last treatment wearing off, driving him into a desperate frenzy. He'll come here, Catherine said with certainty. For the treatment protocols. The formulas. Everything he needs to maintain control. Good. I met her eyes. Because it's time he learned what real control looks like. Emergency protocols activated throughout the building. Blast doors sealed. Security teams moved into position. But this wasn't just about physical security. Your grandfather left us. A weapon, Victoria revealed, producing a small silver case. A counter agent, something to break the programming. The final phase of Project Phoenix, Wheeler understood. Not just exposing the truth, but freeing the victims. Alerts flashed. Across every screen, Harrison had breached the lobby. Security feeds showed him tearing through obstacles like they were paper, his enhanced strength reaching new heights as desperation fueled his frenzy. Everyone non-essential, evacuate now, I ordered. This ends tonight. Catherine stepped forward. I'm staying. He needs to face what he did to his own daughter. Dr. Reeves began preparing the counteragent. We'll only get one chance. It has to enter his bloodstream during the peak of his enhanced state. Miss Reed, Marcus's voice cracked over the intercom. He's nearly here, and he's not alone. The BR. Feeds showed Thomas and Sarah Montgomery following in Harrison's wake, their own enhancements evident in their inhuman movements. The whole family had been part of the program. All those society events, Catherine realized. The exclusive parties. They were selecting new subjects, expanding their engineered army. While identifying potential threats, Wheeler added. Anyone who showed signs of questioning the status quo mysteriously disappeared or had convenient accidents. The building shook as Harrison reached our floor. Through reinforced glass, we could see him approaching, eyes wild, veins pulsing with unnatural energy. Parker! His voice boomed. You think you can undo everything we've built? We are the future. The next stage of human evolution. No, I stood firm. You're a cautionary tale, a reminder that playing God has consequences. He laughed, the sound chilling in its emptiness. Your grandfather understood. That's why he tried to stop us. But even he couldn't resist progress forever. Progress? Catherine stepped into view. Is that what you call destroying your own daughter? For a moment, something flickered in Harrison's eyes. A ghost of humanity fighting through the programming. The treatments made you strong, I continued, watching monitors tracking his vital signs. But strength without conscience isn't evolution, it's regression. Thomas and Sarah reached the floor, their own enhancements visible in their unnaturally fluid movements. But something was wrong. Their coordination was failing, muscles spasming. The formula is breaking down, Dr. Reeves observed. Without proper dosing, the enhancement process becomes unstable. Harrison's face contorted as he processed this information. The protocols, the formulas, where are they? Gone. I met his gaze. Deleted. Destroyed. Your army of engineered soldiers is about to learn what withdrawal feels like. You fool! He lunged forward, his strength shattering the first layer of security glass. Without the treatments, they'll die. No. Dr. Reeves stepped forward. They won't. Because we found something your team missed. A way to reverse the process. To restore humanity. Sarah collapsed, her perfect poise finally breaking. Harrison, help me. Something's wrong. Thomas reached for her, his own movements becoming erratic. Father. The pain. Now, Marcus, I commanded. Hidden vents activated, filling the air with an aerosolized version of the counteragent. Harrison roared in defiance, but it was too late. The effect was immediate. All three Montgomerys dropped to their knees, years of chemical conditioning beginning to unravel. Security teams, move in, medical unit standing by. I watched as professionals swarmed the scene, stabilizing the family that had once cast me out. It's over, Catherine breathed, tears streaming down her face. It's finally over. But I knew better. This was just the beginning. Across the globe, hundreds of enhanced individuals were about to face the same crisis. The real work was just charting. My phone buzzed one final time. Another message from P. Phase 2 complete. Ready when you are to begin worldwide deployment of the counteragent. Humanity gets a second chance. I looked at my assembled team. Catherine finding her strength. Dr. Reeves clutching decades of research. Wheeler choosing redemption. Victoria standing guard over the truth. The Montgomerys had tried to create a new human race. Instead, they'd helped us rediscover what humanity really meant. The medical teams worked through the night stabilizing the Montgomerys and other enhanced individuals who'd begun flooding emergency rooms across the city. Each case revealed new horrors about Project Eclipse's reach. We've identified 37 corporate executives showing signs of enhancement, Agent Chen reported, reviewing data on her tablet. CEOs, CFOs, board members, all programmed to prioritize profit over human life. The pattern spans industries, Victoria added. Pharmaceutical companies blocking affordable medications, oil companies hiding environmental disasters, defense contractors promote endless conflicts. Dr. Reeves studied brain scans from the affected executives. The enhancement process targeted specific neural pathways. Empathy, compassion, basic human connection. They literally rewired the brain to create perfect corporate sociopaths. And the withdrawal symptoms? I asked, watching Harrison thrash against his restraints in the secure medical unit. Severe, but survivable with the counteragent. They'll recover their humanity, but the memories. She hesitated. They'll remember everything they did while enhanced. Every decision, every victim. Catherine touched the observation window separating us from her father. Maybe that's the real punishment, living with the truth of what they became. A junior analyst rushed in with fresh intel. Miss Reed, we've uncovered something in the Project Eclipse files. They weren't just targeting corporate leaders, they had lists, government officials, military commanders, even judges. A complete societal rewiring, Wheeler understood. Creating a world where profit matters more than people. My grandfather's journal held more revelations. The final pages detailed a global network of secret facilities, each producing the enhancement formula under different code names. These shipping manifests, Victoria studied the data, they match movements of a synthetic compound we tracked to research facilities in 12 countries. The enhancement program went international, Agent Chen confirmed. We're coordinating with Interpol now. Raids are being planned worldwide. A message flashed across my secure terminal. Incoming priority call from Singapore. One of our subsidiary offices, but something felt wrong about the timing. Trace that call, I instructed Marcus. Full spectrum analysis. The results confirmed my suspicion. The signal was bouncing through Singapore, but its true origin was a supposedly abandoned Montgomery Industries facility in the Nevada desert. It's a trap, Catherine realized. They're trying to locate the counteragent formula. Let them try. I activated a hidden protocol in the company's cybersecurity system. My grandfather left us more than just chemical compounds. He created a digital fortress. The attempted hack triggered an autonomous defense system, not just blocking the intrusion, but following it back to its source. Files began flooding our servers. More evidence, more names, more conspirators revealed. Miss Reed, Diane entered with urgency. There's a situation developing at Meadowbrook. The patients, the ones still undergoing treatment. Security feeds showed chaos at the clinic. Enhanced individuals in the midst of withdrawal, their superhuman strength making them nearly impossible to contain. Deploy medical teams with the counteragent, I ordered, and get me a secure line to the governor. We need the National Guard for containment. There's something else. Dr. Reeves looked up from her analysis. The enhancement formula, it's evolving, mutating within the hosts. Those who've had the most treatments are developing new capabilities. The feeds from Meadowbrook showed what she meant. Enhanced subjects demonstrating abilities far beyond the original parameters. Impossible speed, strength that could bend steel, accelerated healing. They're not just enhanced anymore. Wheeler watched in horror. They're becoming something else, entirely. How many? I demanded. Worldwide? Victoria consulted her data. Based on treatment records, potentially thousands, all reaching critical mutation thresholds within the next 48 hours. Catherine gripped the edge of a desk. The nightmares I had, the changes I felt coming, this is what they were planning all along. Not just controlled humans, but a new species, I finished. One that would make normal humans obsolete. The implications were staggering. An enhanced ruling class, literally engineered to dominate. Humanity's next evolutionary step, forced through chemical manipulation and moral suppression. The counteragent. Dr. Reeves spoke urgently. It needs to be modified. The current formula won't work on subjects this far along in the mutation process. How long? Hours, maybe, if we can synthesize enough in time. The building's sensors suddenly screamed alerts. Throughout the secure medical unit, enhanced subjects were coding, their bodies rejecting the original counteragent as the mutations accelerated. Sarah's crashing! Medical staff rushed to her room. BP critical! Neural patterns destabilizing! Thomas seized violently in his restraints. Make it stop! Please! The power! Can't control! Harrison alone remained conscious, watching the chaos with an almost satisfied expression. You see, Parker? You can't stop evolution. The future comes whether you want it or not. I met his gaze through the observation window. You're wrong. The future isn't about dominance. It's about choice, humanity, the very things you tried to engineer away. Such idealism, he sneered. Just like your grandfather. He thought he could save everyone too. Right until the end. A chill ran down my spine. What are you talking about? Why do you think he really died? All those late nights in his private lab, working on his precious counteragent. Accidents happen when you play with such dangerous compounds. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. You murdered him? Murder implies malice. Harrison's smile was terrible to behold. This was evolution in action, survival of the fittest. He was an obstacle to progress. Before anyone could react, alarms blared throughout the building. Unauthorized access in sublevel 3, Marcus reported. Someone's breached the secure labs. The formula, Dr. Reeves gasped. The original enhancement compound. It's still down there, in Richard's private lab. Along with everything he was working on, Wheeler added, including the perfected counteragent, I finished. The one that could stop the mutations permanently. Harrison's smile widened. Tick-tock, Parker. Time to choose. Save these poor souls here, or prevent a new batch of enhancement formula from hitting the streets. Your grandfather faced the same choice. He chose wrong. I looked at my team, each of them waiting for direction. The medical staff are fighting to save lives, at the enhanced subjects struggling against their own mutations. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and this time, I had to choose right. The choice before me wasn't really a choice at all. My grandfather had taught me that true leadership means finding another way. Victoria, coordinated with the National Guard, locked down Meadowbrook completely. No one in or out. I turned to Dr. Reeves. How fast can you synthesize more counteragent? With the current formula? An hour. But it won't be strong enough for the mutations. Then we do both. Catherine, you and Wheeler evacuate the medical floor. Get everyone stable enough to move to secure facilities. I met Marcus's eyes through the security feed. Sublevel 3 is about to have visitors. Harrison's laughter echoed through the observation room. Just like your grandfather, always trying to save everyone. His noble intentions got him killed. No, I turned to face him. His noble intentions saved humanity. He just didn't live to see it through. The private elevator to sublevel 3 required 3 separate biometric scans. As we descended, Victoria pulled up the lab's blueprints on her tablet. The intruders breached through an old maintenance tunnel. They're headed for the vault, where your grandfather kept his most sensitive research. How many? Thermal imaging shows 6. Enhanced, based on their body temperatures. More of Harrison's soldiers, Dr. Reeves guessed. Probably his most advanced subjects. The elevator doors opened to chaos. Alarms blaring, emergency lights casting red shadows through smoke-filled corridors. The enhanced intruders had already breached 2 security checkpoints. They're not just after the formula, I realized, studying their movement pattern. They're following a specific protocol, looking for something else. The kill switch, Dr. Reeves breathed. Your grandfather, he found a way to not just reverse the enhancements, but to prevent them from ever working again, on anyone. A permanent solution. Not just treating symptoms, but curing the disease at its source. Marcus's voice crackled through our earpieces. Miss Reed, the intruders, they're not just enhanced. They're showing signs of the advanced mutations, abilities we've never seen before. Security feeds confirmed his warning. The intruders moved like liquid mercury, their bodies adapting to obstacles in impossible ways. One phased through a solid wall. Another generated intense electrical fields. The formula's final evolution, Dr. Reeves explained. What Harrison was really working toward, not just enhanced humans, but gods, I finished. He wanted to create gods. A blast of energy shorted out the security systems. We were running out of time. The vault, I pointed toward my grandfather's private lab. Everything we need is in there. The enhanced formula, the counter-agent, and the kill switch, Victoria nodded. But how do we get past them? I pulled out my grandfather's pocket watch, the one he'd left me in his will. Inside was a key I'd never used, until now. There's another way in, a path only 2 people knew about. The hidden door opened silently, revealing a narrow passage behind the lab's main walls. As we crept forward, I could hear the intruders ransacking the outer lab. Find it, a commanding voice ordered. The kill switch must be destroyed before the mutations go global. Through gaps in the wall panels, I could see them clearly now. 6 figures in tactical gear, their bodies rippling with unnatural power. Leading them was a face I recognized, Admiral James Sterling, head of the military's Black Research Division. Your father promised us gods, he snarled at Thomas, who stood trembling in a corner. Instead, he gave us monsters. Mutations we can't control. And now your sister? Half-sister, Thomas corrected automatically, then screamed as one of the enhanced soldiers grabbed him. I told you everything I know! The kill switch, the formulas, they're all in the vault. Then open it. I can't! Only Parker has the access. Codes now? Parker or your father, Sterling finished. Which is why he's being so cooperative upstairs. Amazing what people will do when their mutations start breaking down. We'd reached the vault's hidden entrance. Beyond it lay everything we needed, and everything they wanted to destroy. Dr. Reeves, I whispered, how fast can you synthesize? The kill switch compound once we're inside? Minutes. The equipment's all pre-calibrated. Your grandfather left it ready. A crash from the main lab made us freeze. Found something, one of the enhanced soldiers called. Hidden compartment. Looks like research notes. The original formula, Dr. Reeves recognized the documents they were examining. If they get that into mass production, I'd seen enough. Victoria, signals Catherine. Execute Protocol Omega. Throughout the building, hidden systems activated. In the medical unit, Harrison Montgomery's vital signs suddenly spiked as targeted electromagnetic pulses disrupted his enhanced cellular structure. What's happening to me? His panicked voice carried through our earpieces. The power. It's biocontainment fields, I explained to my team. Designed specifically to disrupt enhanced cellular activity, my grandfather's last gift. Sterling and his soldiers staggered as the fields reached sub-level 3. Their mutations, already unstable, began to fluctuate wildly. Now, I triggered the vault's hidden entrance. Dr. Reeves, start synthesis. Victoria, secure the original formula. I'll handle the kill switch. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Alarms still blaring, enhanced soldiers trying to breach the vault's main door while we worked to save humanity from its own hubris. "Synthesis complete," Dr. Reeves announced. "But we need a delivery system, something that can reach all the enhanced subjects simultaneously." "Use the building's ventilation," Victoria suggested, "like with the counteragent." "Bigger," I corrected. "We need global reach." I pulled up my grandfather's final protocol on the vault's secure terminal. "We use their own distribution network," understanding dawned. "The same system they use to spread the enhancement formula. Becomes the cure." Sterling's voice boomed through the walls. "You can't stop evolution, Parker. The future belongs to the enhanced." "No," I activated the final sequence. "The future belongs to humanity, all of humanity." Across the globe, hidden facilities received new commands. Distribution systems designed to create gods were repurposed to restore human dignity. The vault's main door finally breached. Sterling and his soldiers poured in, their bodies warping with uncontrolled power. "Too late," Dr. Reeves announced. "Distribution initiated." We watched on monitors as the kill switch compound reached enhanced subjects worldwide. In our medical unit, Harrison and Sarah Montgomery convulsed as their mutations broke down permanently. Sterling lunged for the controls, but his enhanced strength was already fading. "Do you realize what you've done? The power you're destroying?" "Power without conscience isn't power at all," I quoted my grandfather. "It's just another form of weakness." Within hours, reports flooded in from around the world. Enhanced subjects returning to normal. Mutations breaking down. Humanity stepping back from the brink of forced evolution. In the aftermath, as federal agents led Sterling and his team away, I found Catherine standing in our grandfather's office. "It's really over," she said softly. "All of it." "Not everything," I corrected. "We still have work to do, people to help, a company to rebuild. The right way this time." Thomas, detained but stable, watched through security glass as his family's empire transformed. Sarah, finally free of enhancement, broke down crying as memories of her actions returned. Harrison alone remained silent, staring at nothing as his dreams of engineered godhood crumbled. "What happens to them now?" Catherine asked. "They face justice," Victoria answered. "But they also get help. Real help, not chemical manipulation." My phone buzzed one final time, the mysterious P with a last message. "Phase 3 ready when you are. The real work begins." I looked at my team. Catherine finding her strength, Dr. Reeves pursuing ethical research, Wheeler choosing redemption, Victoria guarding truth, Marcus protecting what matters. The Montgomerys had kicked me out for being broke. Not knowing I'd inherited something far more valuable than money, I'd inherited my purpose. "Ready?" Victoria asked as reporters gathered outside. I touched my grandfather's pocket watch, feeling its steady tick. "Time to write the next chapter." "Ready." "Looking for more?" "We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.